Now, can you promise me that no one else is going to die?
Get out!
Hey guys, so tons of you love the idea of Final Destination Fridays and Saw Saturdays, so we are going to be doing both of those series. So for the next 5 weeks, I will be reviewing Final Destination on every Friday, and also reviewing all the rest of the Saw films on every Saturday. So you will get 2 consecutive days out of me for the next 5 weeks, which is crazy. If you have missed any of my Saw reviews prior, then I will link them down below. Also, some really exciting news. I now have on board my boyfriend as my assistant, unpaid position. It's like an internship. And if you've seen Nightcrawler, that was kind of a reference to Nightcrawler anyway. He's going to be helping me out a lot with this channel because he is also very passionate about movies and horror. Well, not as passionate about horror as me. I kind of made him passionate about it. He is really good at finding news about movies and trailers and new movies coming out and introducing me to new weird horror films and then having me review it for you guys. He's always kind of done this as far as like finding weird trailers or horror movies that I haven't seen yet, so I'm kind of like, hey, do you want to help me out more than that? So the news segment that I used to do called Horrific News will be coming back, and that's really exciting. I don't know how often I'll do them because, you know, I kind of just will collect news until I can do a video. Also, I will be doing what my boyfriend calls opinionated monologues. Basically, you can ask me questions or like give me topics to discuss and I can just share my opinions on them. I already have a couple written down. Where is it? So there's a couple topics that I've already written down. Let me know your thoughts on them. Lower MPAA ratings, sacrifice scares, the horror genre in today's society in general, why supernatural horror films are scary, do movies need gore to be scary? Those are just a few topics that I kind of brainstormed with my boyfriend, and I do have more, but I don't want to give away every video that I want to plan. Let me know if you like that idea of like me sharing my thoughts and like just talking about topics about horror more as a general concept, to introduce something new onto this channel besides just doing reviews. But that's not why we're here today. We are here to talk about Final Destination 1. Don't know if I reviewed this, but I'm gonna review it again if I did. So this came out in the year 2000, right on the cusp of like 90s horror, so it still kind of has that vibe of like a 90s horror film in my opinion. The director was James Wong, and he actually produced a bunch of episodes for American Horror Story this year, last year. Over 50 episodes. He also produced Final Destination 3 and a lot of episodes of The X-Files. So I assume that a lot of us, if not have seen Final Destination films, we know what they are. It's basically about this death entity. And I think that this was really creative in its time because a lot of things that were happening were more like supernatural or slasher or things like that sort, where it's more obvious horror. This was a lot more subtle. It was more of an entity, and they actually originally planned to have death be a more obvious character, a more obvious entity. You can see an example of this in the bathroom scene death thing, and you see like the water coming out from under the not under the toilet, it kind of comes out from under the toilet. And you see the shadow in the background behind the character, so that is pretty much the only obvious signs of death as an entity. And then after that death, they decided to make it more of a subtle character entity thing. So they started setting up all the deaths to look more like accidents. So all the films start out pretty much the same. There is a huge like accident or thing where a bunch of people die, and one of the characters, who in turn becomes the main character, has like a premonition of the horrible event that happens that kills everyone. And so they kind of have a freak out moment. Other people, this one happens to be a plane crash. The main character sees the plane crashing and exploding in the air before they take off, and then he wakes up to realize that everything that he imagined before was starting to come true, like certain little things. So then he gets off the plane, a bunch of people get off after him, and then the plane does indeed explode after they've gotten off. And then there's this entity, death, that starts hunting them down one by one and killing them in the order that they would have died had they stayed on the plane. That is the basic plot line for every Final Destination horror film. Personally, I love the Final Destination series. You'll find, as I review each one individually, which ones I like more than others. One is a classic. I think it's always going to be one of my favorites. The death scenes in this one are really cool, really gory, and they maintain the gore factor for sure throughout all of them, so that's not an issue if you like gore. I think the first one can come off a little bit cheesy because it was kind of reminiscent of the 90s horror. It was on the cusp of it, so it was kind of a little bit cheesy, kind of like some 90s horror can be, like watching it now. Had I watched it when it first came out, I was only 10, so I didn't. It might have been a lot cooler, maybe a little less cheesy. Now the thing about these films, especially the first one, there are so many subtleties that you can pick up on throughout it if you watch it more than once, which I have watched it more than once. I didn't even catch some of these things. There are a lot of foreshadowing to a lot of characters' deaths, even in the opening credits. Not only that, but there's subtle things like at the very, very end when the surviving guy after the accident happens with the, I think it was the bus. There's a 7 on his cheek to represent the number of people that got off the plane. He is at the baggage claim and sees a bag with the number 666 on it, which actually happens in the third one as well when she is getting onto the roller coaster. There's a lot of subtle little things that you can catch here and there, which I love when movies do that kind of stuff, because everything ties into either the number of the plane, the flight, the number of people, the deaths of each individual. Like however someone is positioned, you can tell how they're gonna die, kind of like what they did in the third one with the photographs. Also just want to point out that the music that is played throughout this film is by a musician who was killed in a plane crash. A lot of weird things about this film. I don't really have spoilers or anything to go over because I can just only assume that we've all seen it, and that's basically the gist of it. Like, I don't know if I really want to go into every death individually. One of my favorite ones has to be the train one where his head gets cut in half. And that's one thing I love about these films is the constant anxiety throughout it, like the stress that your body is just feeling because it's scary, it's horrifying, it's just this weird entity. I do want to say that they get very much more dramatic and over dramatic as they go on in the films. Now the first one, not realistic at all, but if I had to pick one to be the most realistic, it's gotta be that one or the second one. You let me know what you think about this movie specifically and also Final Destination series as a whole. Hope you guys are looking forward to this segment. I will go more into depth about later Final Destination films if I didn't really do that for this one, so just let me know what exactly you want me to talk about, if you want me to go into every death. I can't wait for the next one though. I'm just gonna spoil it. The second one's my favorite. Oops. But that's basically all I have to talk about for this Final Destination Friday. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to leave some more movie requests down below because I'm still going to be reviewing regular horror films. And I will talk to you guys soon. Bye.
Can you hold on?